I took this lens apart the other day, completely disassembled it, cleaned it, and then reassembled it. And now, it's working perfectly. Welcome back, everybody, and today I'm going to be showing you how I edit my film photos on my phone. Here we go. So there are three main apps that I like to stick with when I'm editing photos mobile, and those are going to be VSCO, Lightroom CC, and Snapseed. There are a few other apps that I know people like to use, such as the Darkroom and Afterlight. We'll briefly go over those, but we're going to stick to the main three that I like to use. So I'm sure a lot of people are going to think it's no different editing a film photo than it is a regular photo on your phone. They're both going to be JPEGs. You're going to have the same editing capabilities, but shooting film, as we all know and everybody always talks about, is very different than shooting with a DSLR. The colors are going to be different depending on the film stock. If you're using something like a Fuji, you're going to get a little more green. If you're using a Kodak, it's going to be a little more gold. It all depends. And if you're editing on your computer, you have access to be able to change all that. And if you're DSLR scanning your films, you also have that, but we'll get to that in another time. But the point being, there are color corrections that you're going to have to make to film photos. So I specifically chose a couple of photos that I know are not exposed properly and the colors aren't accurate. This way I have more room to show you exactly how I make those corrections in a little more dramatic way. Okay, so the first app we're going to get into is Lightroom CC. Now I know this isn't one that everybody's going to have or one that everybody's going to want to use. However, I have it on my desktop. I'm very comfortable using it. It's quick and easy for me. So we're going to start with Lightroom CC and then we're going to go use two other ones that I also use. All right, so if we open up Lightroom CC here we go. We have this picture of Jack. Now this was taken in Iceland, and in my defense, this is not my fault, okay? Let's just clarify that beforehand. I think this is a great picture, but the entire roll came out with this faded look. Now, it looks like as if it would be underexposed, but I promise you that's not. All the photos were taken throughout the trip in drastic harsh sunlight and then in faded light, and then this was at sunset where it was nice, soft, even, but still plenty of light to take the picture. So the entire roll came out like this, and I can't figure out why. I'm not sure if maybe it was just a bad roll of film, but I used a roll from the same box about a month earlier and on the same camera, and they all came out fine. So I guess it could have been a bad roll of film, or maybe the chemicals weren't used properly, or I don't know, maybe something messed up with the scanning. I'm not sure. Point is, the whole roll came out like this. I need to take a look at the negatives. Maybe if I rescan them, I can fix it. So this is what I have to deal with. And I really want to show you how you get in detail editing things that are going to happen with film. So first thing I always like to do is start out with the curves. So we're going to go into light, go to curve. I'm going to do the general first, bring up the blacks there just a bit and crush them there. And then I'm going to drop those highlights and then also bring that up a bit. So that's a good starting point. May come and adjust that again later. I'm going to add some blues, kind of counteract the yellow and green that I'm going to get. Next up, contrast. I'm going to bump that up significantly at about 88%. Highlights, I'll bump just a tad. Blacks, I'm going to drop those. Shadows, I'm going to drop those as well. Whites, I'm okay with. Colors, let's go temperature. I'm starting to get a lot of yellow in her face because I'm messing with colors. So if I drop that to -6, maybe -7, that looks pretty good. Tint, I'm going to bump this up a bit to get rid of the green that I'm kind of getting since it wasn't exposed quite properly. Maybe just 2. I like that color there. Vibrance, I don't want to mess with that too much. Probably going to leave that. Saturation, I will bump up a bit, and then I think vibrance I will drop because I want to bring the colors back into that jacket and that yellow sweater. But I don't want to get too carried away. As you can see, it's starting to give her face kind of an orange look to it, and I don't want that at all. That's about good. Effects, dehaze. Yes, we're going to dehaze this. This is going to bring back more clarity and give it more structure, and it's also going to help make those colors pop, as you can see. 10, it's getting a little darker again. Clarity, bump that up too. Getting a little more orange and red in the face again, so I'm going to go back over to light. I'm going to bump the exposure just a little bit, and then I'm going to go back to color, temperature, drop it again, kind of counteract what the structure is doing to it. Not quite that much, maybe just 9. Come on, don't be stupid. A little bit more, right about 8. That's not bad. So as you can see, it's already starting to look much better than what it was. I'm going to make a few other minor adjustments. I'm going to go over to selective and I'm going to zoom in here, and we want to fix her hat. The hat is kind of a forest green, and because we've been playing with the color so much, it's almost like a gray brown now, and I don't really like how that looks. So I'm going to go ahead and select the hat. Just get a general idea of that there, a little bit around there, and that should be okay. So I'm going to go to color. I'm gonna add a little bit of green, greenish blue, kind of a teal almost, just a bit. Light, exposure, contrast, shadows. I'm gonna drop the shadows some, drop the black some. That's starting to do it. With color, it's tricky because it can overdo it. Up the saturation some. Tint, let's drop that into green just a little bit. That's getting better. Let's go back over to light, drop the shadows some, drop the exposure just a bit, and that is looking pretty good, I think. That's actually pretty nice. I am gonna drop the saturation just a bit. It's getting a little too much. Maybe bump that down to like 14 or something. Just the tint maybe. Maybe if I drop the exposure just a bit more. Not quite color. Saturation, drop that. That's pretty good. I'm okay with that. I could drop it a little bit more, but I like the look of that. That's starting to look much better. Last thing I'm going to do, selective again, I'm going to add. I'm going to do a gradient here in the bottom half, just because I want to bring back some color and also some contrast, some blacks on that bottom half. So I'm going to go to light. I'm going to drop the exposure just a bit. Blacks, I'm going to drop a little bit as well. Shadows, definitely going to drop that. Highlights, I'm going to bump the highlights, and what that's going to do is give me a little more color in that yellow sweater there. Whites, maybe if I do that, there we go. It's getting me a little bit more in there, but I'm gonna drop the blacks again to kind of counteract what it's bringing back in the shadows. That is looking pretty good. Saturation, I could bump just a, but I don't want to do too much with the temperature. Temperature, drop that a little bit. And that, I think, looks pretty dang good. So if we click on it, you can see before, faded, lost a lot of the color, a lot of the contrast, not a whole lot there. Let go, boom. That is leaps and bounds better than what it was. And I am perfectly okay with that photo how it is. I could go back and make some minor tweaks, but for now, that's fine. So we're gonna move on from there. Next up, we're gonna go into Snapseed. So in Snapseed. So in Snapseed, I had this photo that Jack took of me on that same trip. It's a little bit yellow. I've lost a little bit of contrast. I would underexpose it just a tad. I'm not a huge fan of the blown out sky in the background, but it is what it is. So Snapseed is great. So the first thing I'm gonna do, as usual, is I'm gonna go into the curves here. Curves, I'm gonna bring up my shadows, drop them there. Good. Bring down my highlights a bit. Give me that S. My S tends to be a little more exaggerated than most people's S, which, whatever. Yeah, that's a starting point. I'm okay with that. I'm gonna bring that up just a bit. I'm okay with that. I'm starting to get a lot more of a temperature in there. And here they have their own presets, which you can use. And then of course here you can go in and selectively do each individual color. I might, of course, go back and add that blue again, like I did with the other one. Not quite giving me what I want. Maybe if I do red, just drop the red, which that helps a little bit. Okay, that's not bad. I can work with that. So tools, there's a lot of tools apparently. So we have white balance, curves, details, tune image, crop, rotate, selective. We have noir for black and white stuff. We have black and white. Grunge, head pose, frame, text, double exposure, vignette. Vignette's cool, I guess. What's nice about this is that with some film photos, you tend to get a little bit of a vignette once you start over editing them. It tends to bring in shadows around the corners. So what's nice about using the vignette is you can kind of counteract that and bring back more of the highlights when you have too much shadow and that kind of thing around the edges. But I'm not gonna play with that, we're good. Tune image, let's go over here. We click on here, it gives us the whole list of things we need to tune the image. Contrast, we can bump the contrast a little bit. So this is similar to Instagram in the fact that you click and drag on the bottom and your bar's up top and it kind of goes accordingly. I like that method better. Also prefer on Instagram how you can just tap to go by 1 point, because there's so many times where I'm dragging, I let go, and it jumps 3 points. I hate that. So this isn't quite as good. Nevertheless, I like the aspect of it. So contrast, yeah, I'm okay with that. It's fine there. Saturation is okay. Ambiance, highlights. Go to highlights, I'm gonna drop the highlights some. I wanna bring back a little bit of that in my face. Warmth, drop the warmth some. As you can see, I'm getting rid of that yellow in the rocks, and it's starting to get a little blue. I'm okay with about -6. This is what I was talking about. You see it. I know you see it. And now it's not moving. -6. Starting to get a little blue. -5, -4, -7. Whatever. -7. Shadows. I'm going to drop these shadows a bit. There we go. That's getting that black in there that I like. Yes, I'm losing a little bit of detail there. That's my personal preference, and that's what I like. I don't think that detail really adds to the image. I kind of like that it falls off. So I'm going to drop those shadows. And that's my call. So deal with it. Moving right along. Tools. Let's see. White balance. Temperature. Let's drop the overall temperature. Not too much, because then I get blue. All in those highlights is really annoying. It's not what I want. I'm just trying to get rid of the yellows. So if I go down 2 or 3, I think that's fine. I am starting to get some green in there, which I don't like. So maybe if I bump up the tint, 5, that works. I'm okay with that. I'm going to go back to the curves. I'm going to adjust that green. I'm going to drop that green a bit. That's a little bit better. Done there. Tools. What else did I need to do? I think that's pretty good. I'm going to do brush real quick. So I can zoom in here. better. Colors overall are better. I'm gonna do brush, and I'm going to dodge and burn. I'm gonna burn a little bit area in here just to give it a little more contrast. I think that's pretty good. So I am done there. And if we click it again, you can see before we had that yellow. Not a bad image overall, but you can see how drastic the change is after making those edits. That's a little too red in the face there for my personal taste. And then I'm not a huge fan of that little blue hint that I know is there in the highlights. If I wanted to go back, I could probably do some selective things and edit that. But for the sake of this tutorial, that is good to me. Okay, so lastly is going to be VSCO. Now, VSCO is probably my favorite app, or VSCO, if that's how you want to say it. I don't care. But VSCO is probably my favorite app. It's built on giving that film simulation to your regular photos. And so it's just natural to me to want to put my film photos in here to give it slight adjustments when I need to. So for this, we're going to use this picture of Jack in Colorado. We were in the sand dunes here for a couple days. I love this photo. I love the hair that's right there across her face. Came out better than I expected, honestly. So this is fine how it is, but we're going to make some minor adjustments. So if we go into the edit, we have down here all the presets that they give you, and now they've recently added categories, which is great because I got really tired of going through every individual tiny little thumbnail trying to find one that would just work perfectly. A lot more lock signs. Jeez, I'm not buying all those. There's plenty of good free ones. You don't have to buy the extras. They come out with a lot of new ones all the time, which is nice if you want to see different looks or if you want to make different adjustments. And they can do some things that you can't do with their regular edits. It's quick and it's easy just to put a preset on it that they give you as opposed to going into making all these tonal adjustments. However, we're going to do some different things. So if I go into portrait, and there we are, I like HB2. It's nice, soft, subtle. A lot of their presets tend to have that yellow or green look to it. HB I like though. It's a little cooler look. As I said before, I like to keep my temperature on the lower side and have a little more cool tone to my photos. That is a little too extreme though, so I'm going to turn that down a bit. Let's go down to about, I think about 8 is probably good. Next up, we're going to go and make some adjustments. Contrast, I'm okay with that. Saturation, highlights, there we go. I'm going to bring back some of these highlights that I'm losing just so it doesn't seem as bright. It was around midday, but I want to give it a little softer tone to it. A little more warm and inviting. Cool and inviting, since I don't like warm. You know how it is. Shadows, I don't want to bring that back. I want to keep my shadows where they are. Next up, white balance. Temperature, we're going to drop the temperature just a tad because I like cool photos. Tint, I'm fine with. Don't mess with tint. Now they have a skin tone, which is nice. If you play with that, drag it around, you can see it gets real orange there, gets a little green there, but I am going to bring it up just a bit, tone down the orange that's in her face. There we go. Grain, which is nice. I'm not going to add any. Fade. Fade is nice. Fade is kind of, no, fade's not nice. Never mind. Wasn't talking about fade. Split tone. That's what I was talking about. Now this is great specifically for film photos because when you have that green tint or you have that yellow tint, you can go in here and if you have a green in your shadows, you can bring back a blue or something like that to kind of counteract that green depending on how much you have in there. I don't need it right now, but that is a nice option to have. You can do the same with the highlights. So this is interesting. They have some new stuff. Apparently they have a monthly subscription plan now. I guess that's like similar to a Lightroom thing. Borders. Oof. White's not bad. I could do white. It's not really for me. She hates pink. Hates pink. But no, I'm not gonna mess with that. HLS. Now this is nice. So hue, saturation, and lightness. I could get used to this. I can go in here and manipulate certain colors. If we wanted to go into blue, there's that turquoise green thing everybody likes to do with the skies. I like that. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna leave it right there though, but that is a nice option. Not enough for me to pay a monthly subscription for, since of course I use Lightroom on my desktop, but it is nice to have. So I think that's pretty good how it is. If we click on it before, we can see it's a little faded, a little yellow, not too bad though. And here we've just bumped up the contrast a little bit, brought down the highlights and kind of recovered some of that just to give it a cooler, softer tone. I might go back and adjust it so it's not as significant. It looks like I did a little too much contrast in the face, so I might tweak that. But other than that, I'm fine. For this purpose, we're done. Next, two other ones that I've played with, but I don't use a whole lot are Afterlight and the Darkroom. So the Darkroom is interesting. If we go in here, we have curves, which is nice. It's got a lock symbol on it. I'm assuming I have to pay for that too. Oh yeah, try before you buy, curves tool. But it is nice. It has the curves. I can adjust my blacks in here. I can drop them. I can bring down my highlights, that kind of thing. I can bump them, all that kind of stuff. HLS, I have that. Frames, everybody's all about these frames. There we go. Brightness, contrast, highlights, you know, shadows, saturation, vibrance. Doesn't do anything on a black and white photo. Vignette, sharpness, highlights, shadows. That's kind of cool. I can pick a specific color. But the darkroom is an option. Not too bad. Next up, another one people like to do is Afterlight. I personally don't use Afterlight because for me, when I'm messing with the highlights, it tends to crush them a little too much and I kind of lose everything in them. So if we look at this photo of me, again in Iceland, contrast, saturation, highlights. Here we go, highlights. So if I go up in the highlights, blows out. But if I go down in the highlights, yeah, it's messing with the shadows in there, and I don't like that at all. It's taking away my shadows. It's just supposed to mess with the highlights. Yeah, because that whole rock is just, yeah, I don't like that at all. Maybe it's just this photo. What else do they got in here? Light leaks. Well, that's interesting. Oh, wow. That's super trendy. If you want to, you know, take your film photo and make it look like a film photo. It's kind of hipster, I guess. Messing around with this all day. 100 different light leaks. I don't think any of these look natural, though, but what do I know? Oh, there we go. There's the burn one. That's a little more natural, I guess. Wander instant film. Oh, instant film. Try film pack. 22 textures and 13 frames for 99 cents. Seems kind of cheap. Dust. Oh, this isn't bad. I know a lot of people like to add some dust to their photos. It's weird now that this is the thing. I don't like the light leaks. You know what you can do? You just take your camera, when you're done shooting your roll of film, if you want light leaks on all of it, all you do is just pop this. What a lot of people do is they'll just pop that and shut it real quick. Then you have a light leak on all your photos. Fun fact, I've done it before. Accidentally, because I thought I wanted my film, but I've done it before. And I know people who do it intentionally. Or if you want to do it in post. Okay guys, so that is going to wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed that how-to on how I edit my photos on my phone when I don't have my laptop available and I'm just on the go. So again, as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.